If you ingest negative content all day long for an extended period of time, you will be affected by it. The past couple of weeks, the media, the news, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram have been flooded with constant negative content. And a lot of people are starting to really be heavily affected by this. I know a lot of people in my personal life have been heavily affected just by watching the content. So take it from someone whose job is in part listening to the worst thing that's ever happened to somebody day after day. Vicarious trauma is a thing. It is something that we're not talking about. Hey, I'm Dr. Harry McCleary, licensed clinical psychologist and Navy veteran, and I spend the majority of my week treating active duty service members with PTSD. In this video, I want to talk about how ingesting a large amount of content from the news, social media, or even having multiple difficult conversations can affect your mental health. I am not here to bash social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. I'm also not here to bash the news, whichever news you watch. However, when you ingest a lot of negative content, that comes at a cost. And if you're not properly taking care of yourself while you are ingesting this content, you can end up having a lot of symptoms that look very similar to depression or PTSD. You might be having problems concentrating at work. You might be having trouble sleeping at night because there are so many thoughts that are going on in your mind. You might be having nightmares. You might be losing your appetite or find yourself eating more than you usually do. All these symptoms may be the result of ingesting that large amount of negative content and not taking care of yourself on the back end. To make it plain, everyone has a limit to how much crap they can deal with. And some people seem to be able to handle more stress than others. But one way is not necessarily better than the other. And let me explain. If you can think of it for a moment that everyone has their own trash receptacle. Some people are born or have created over time a dumpster's worth of crap that they can deal with. Other people have one of those little trash cans that you have in your bathroom. Both can hold stress. One can obviously hold more than the other. However, if you fill either one of them up, they will run over. The issues with the smaller trash can is it easily gets filled up. You have to dump it out more often. The issue with the larger dumpster is once you fill it up, you realize how much crap you actually have to deal with and that you have to dump out. If you're enjoying this video or if it's helpful for you, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you want to learn more about PTSD, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel at Dr. Harry McCleary. So my first suggestion for you is to know your limits. And if you're asking, how do I know my limits? If you're starting to have some of the symptoms that I mentioned earlier, or you're having trouble putting some of those negative thoughts, some of those negative feelings, some of those negative images out of your mind, you might be getting really close to your limit. So what do we do if we're already close to our limit? I'm glad you asked. So what do you do if you take that little trash can and you start to fill it up with water and you notice it's getting really close to the brim? You cut the water off. And that's exactly what you want to do in this situation. You want to try to limit your news content, limit your social media, limit some of those conversations that you might be having. Because even if those conversations are important, that means they're important enough for you to be in the right mind space to have those conversations. Now, I know I said it's okay to limit those difficult conversations, but this is not an excuse to never have difficult conversations or conversations in which you feel uncomfortable. Many of those types of conversations are actually going to be incredibly helpful as time goes on. However, because they are helpful and important, I do want to make sure that all parties are in the right mindset to actually have them and have a productive conversation. Now, as I said earlier, the news, social media, difficult conversations, these things aren't inherently bad. I would even argue that they have a lot of positive qualities to them. However, if you're having difficulty sleeping, if you're having nightmares at night, and you can't avoid social media or the news, what I'm going to encourage you to do is not ingest that negative content close to bedtime. So get off of social media an hour, 2 hours before you go to bed. Don't watch the highlights of the news right before you go to bed. The news, things on social media, difficult conversations, get our mind going, get our thoughts going. And that causes us to have a lot of trouble sleeping. What you want to do instead is limit those things or start those things maybe even earlier in your day. That way, your mind has a time to recover, a time to process that information, and maybe even time to put something a little bit more positive in your life, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. Arguably, the most important part of dealing with a bombardment of social media, negative news media, difficult conversations is this idea that got drilled into my head in grad school, but then also came with a lot of work. So I'm not sure actually how that works out. But self-care. And what I mean by self-care is eating healthy, exercising, making sure that you sleep, taking care of yourself so you can have the capacity to watch social media, to be on Facebook, to be on Twitter. All of these things often take from you. Self-care is a way of putting things back in. Or another way to explain it is self-care is a way that you can actually pour out some of that trash from the dumpster, pour out some of that trash from that bathroom trash can, so you have more room. And the last piece of self-care that I think often gets forgotten about is having fun. Having fun, having a good time is extremely important and maybe the best type of self-care. And as long as your self-care doesn't harm you or anyone else, I don't really care what you do. Some people play video games. Some people go to the spa. Some people like to have a nice bubble bath. Some people like to go and get something good to eat. Hanging out with friends, family, whatever it is, what you like to do and you are having fun at doing, that should be part of your routine. That should be a part of your week, arguably a part of your day, laughing, having a good time. And if you need to, schedule it, because it is just as important as any one of your meetings throughout the day. Everyone's capacity for holding the stress and the trauma of others and themselves is limited. So everybody has a limit. And I'll use myself actually as an example of not just knowing my limits, but making sure that other people know my limits as well. So I know that I have a job that requires a lot from me, a lot emotionally from me. So I reserve a lot of that capacity for my patients and for the people that are close to me. Everything else, I keep a very close eye on. So some people that know me personally, might have experienced something like this. Hey, so you want to go see that movie? Everybody gets killed in it and then the killer gets away at the end. Hey, I hear it's really good. No, I'm actually good. But I hear that they are playing Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and they're having a live band with it. You have to limit that negative content. You have to know your capacity. But it's also okay for you to let other people know your limits as well. To set boundaries with other people. Because not only might their capacity be different, but they might have less or more crap in their trash can. Something to think about. As always, if this video was helpful for you, please like it, subscribe to my channel, but more important than that, if you know somebody that's currently struggling with social media, the news, these difficult conversations that keep happening over and over again, share this video with them or share the knowledge that you learned with them. Because at the end of the day, that's what all of this is about. One veteran, one person trying to help another.